Welcome to Gen X Media, unplugged and unfiltered.
April 13th, 2029. NASA told you it would miss. They lied. This is a newly declassified simulation. The asteroid Apophis is on a direct collision course. It's a rock the size of the Empire State Building, moving at 70,000 miles per hour. Impact point, Kansas City, Missouri. First, a flash, brighter than 100 suns. Then a shock wave. A 3,000-foot wall of fire and debris engulfs the Midwest. Within an hour, global firestorms, dust clouds block the sun for a decade. It's not a matter of if, but when. Your entire future depends on one question. Are you prepared for the day the sky falls? Comment plan if you have one.
Yo, they're trying to tell you what I'm telling you, bro.
But an asteroid hurtling towards the Earth is something real-life scientists are preparing for at NASA. They're refining the plan because in a few short years, a space rock could come quite close. Here's CTV's Troy Malpin.
Remember, I've been telling y'all.
In about 5.5 years, a massive asteroid named Apophis, after the Egyptian god of chaos, will pass so close to the Earth, we'll be able to see it in the sky. And that has NASA scientists on high alert.
Listen to what they're saying.
Out there weeks to months to get a look at Apophis before that close encounter with the Earth.
Scientists working with global partners carried out asteroid threat exercises back in April to figure out if a potential planet killer is headed our way and how the world would cooperate to safeguard Earth.
You know, we're going to need more than Bruce Willis. We're going to need actual real scientists. And frankly, with every year and every experiment, especially the double asteroid redirect test, which was so successful, I really believe that astronauts or that space scientists are figuring this stuff out.
Unlike in the movies, NASA has been working on tools and technology to tackle such a threat and coordinate an international disaster response. 2 years ago, the double asteroid redirection test, known as the DART spacecraft, smashed into an asteroid to knock a massive space rock off its gravitational course. And it worked. That's a pretty big deal for all of us on Earth. NASA hopes to use the same tested technique so we don't go the way of the dinosaurs, wiped out by a massive meteor millions of years ago.
Apophis is the closest thing we know about to an asteroid that could really give us a bad day. This thing would wipe out a city, no problem. But fortunately, just luck, it's not going to hit us. It's just going to come close.
Now, I need y'all to listen to me and listen to me very closely, y'all. They put these movies in front of y'all for a reason, bro. Y'all remember the movie Don't Look Up that came out on Netflix, right? That was talking about the asteroid and how it was just supposed to pass and everything, but it was over, bro. And for those who follow me, y'all know I've been talking about Apophis since 2020, bro. That was one of them. We're telling you, don't panic. Just in my personal opinion, you feel me? This for educational purposes only, for TikTok, you know what I mean? And all the rest of the world, y'all need to hear that shit, bro. Wake up!
Just in case you don't watch the news, what I'm about to say is for pure entertainment and for entertainment purposes only. So if you haven't heard of this Apophis asteroid, I went down this rabbit hole. And you know that hit show that was out recently, Paradise? Think about that show for a second. So back in 2004, this asteroid Apophis actually entered Earth's orbit and was going to be a threat. Come to find out, obviously, we're still here. It wasn't a threat. Now, it is due to come into Earth's atmosphere again in 2029. But here's where it gets really, really interesting and weird. Over the last almost 2 years, since early of 2025, there has been 10 scientists found disappeared or unalived that were associated with this asteroid. Whether they worked at the JP Propulsion Labs, whether they worked for NASA or some other government scientific agency, they're no longer with us. And it's gotten so weird that Trump's actually created a task force to investigate their mysterious disappearances and deaths. But here's where it gets even more interesting. You know that hit show, Ancient Aliens? Well, 3 of the main people who speak on Ancient Aliens have suddenly passed away recently. I don't know what's going on. But this thing that's due to come back around in 2029, what do these people know? What were they gonna share? Then remember, on April Fool's Day, they sent that rocket to that big light bulb in the sky.
But I learned later that this is probably because they're involved in a cover-up, and that the chances of Apophis striking the Earth in 2029 is far greater than what they are admitting at this point. And by the way, in the book, I go into that. It's more than a conspiracy theory. I've interviewed and talked with astronomers, members of NASA, people with above top secret security clearance. Lieutenant Colonel Robert McGinnis from the Pentagon, who was a senior analyst there, put me in contact with impact specialists. People like Nathan Myhrvold, who is constantly listed in the top 100 critical thinkers, scientific thinkers in the world, a true polymath with over 800 patents to his name. He once ran the science department at Microsoft. One of the most brilliant men on earth has recently published a peer-reviewed paper in an astronomy magazine in which he accuses NASA of an absolute cover-up of the threat that is posed by both Apophis and some other asteroids. So I did all of this research and came to believe that, in fact, of all dates, Friday the 13th, April 2029, Apophis is going to strike the Earth.
I feel quite confident that the missing and dead scientists, that big conspiracy we've been hearing about for a while now, has something to do with planetary defense systems. Because I think we all can agree that this can't be a coincidence, and I just discovered something else that maybe isn't a coincidence either. Amy Eskridge, Michael David Hicks, Matthew Sullivan, Frank Mywald, they all passed away before the middle of 2024. And then in 2025, we had a string of people going missing. But it's what happened between those two sets of occurrences that currently has my attention. As many of my commenters have aptly pointed out, NASA is not the only space agency in the world. In fact, one of the most significant in the world just happened to launch their very first planetary defense spacecraft. Its purpose was specifically to study the results of NASA's DART mission. Now, if you recall from my other videos, or just from your own knowledge, NASA's DART mission was a launch to divert an asteroid by basically slamming a rocket into it. And it was apparently successful. But that rocket looks just like Hera, which is what they launched on October 7th, 2024. So if the first one was a DART mission, and then this Hera mission was just reconnaissance, why did they look identical? I'm just asking the question.
Breaking news, the 13th scientist found burned in Tesla at the age of 29. This is the 13th scientist who has passed away behind the recent deaths of scientists. 29-year-old Joshua LeBlanc was not just any NASA engineer. He worked on nuclear propulsion systems, one of the most sensitive areas in aerospace. Police say his body burned beyond recognition, and police confirmed his identity 3 days later after the body was transported to the Alabama Department of Forensic Science. At the time, his family said they feared he had been abducted and that he had left his phone and wallet in his home at the time of the disappearance. Why are all these scientists leaving their phones behind when they leave? So since he didn't have his phone, police tracked LeBlanc down using data from his Tesla Sentry mode and found that his vehicle sat at the airport in Huntsville for hours on the morning of his passing. His family said his trip west was not part of his plan for the day, and that uncharacteristically he was not communicating with them. Officials are currently treating the incident as a traffic-related accident, and there is no confirmed evidence of foul play. However, the case is drawing significant attention online, as some reports claim LeBlanc may be part of a broader pattern involving multiple scientists who have died or gone missing in recent years. Authorities have not confirmed any connection between these cases. The investigation remains ongoing.
It's time for an Apophis update, and this is a big one. And I'm not even talking about the predictive programming film that comes out the end of the year. If you're new here, I made the bold claim that I believe Apophis is going to impact Earth in either 2029 or 2036, and that the whole disclosure movement has to do with that. But one of the major criticisms I got with that theory is that people didn't believe that the whole world could conspire together. And even though scientists around the world have been going missing, I have an additional piece of evidence that would suggest otherwise. Let me just quickly get you up to speed on what I've been suggesting so far. It starts with the DART mission back in November of 2021, where we launched a rocket at an object in space that impacted successfully in September of 2022, Dimorphos. But something I just recently learned was that the Hera launch by the European Space Agency, which launched October 7th, 2024, and is considered their first planetary defense spacecraft, supposedly launched simply to check the results of that successful DART mission. So you have the ESA and NASA working together on a project to divert asteroids. Of course, we have the APEP launches in October of 2023 and April of 2024, and APEP means Apophis, yet they have nothing to do with one another, apparently. We also had the Artemis 1 launch back in 2022, and then of course the highly controversial Artemis 2 launch on April 1st, 2026. Same day some strange boat set sail, but that's another story altogether. However, just this month, on May 7th, 2026, while we were busy talking about other news headlines, ESA and JAXA held a joint ceremony in Berlin commemorating the agreement to launch their Rapid Apophis mission for space safety, or Ramses, because of course we've got to stick with that Egyptian inspiration. And this rapid mission is scheduled to launch in spring of 2028, with a rendezvous date just a couple of months before Apophis is supposed to impact Earth. Sorry, not impact Earth, but come close. Meanwhile, we have the Artemis 3 mission targeted for a late 2027 launch. Interestingly, the company that just got a huge contract with China also is contracting for the Artemis 3 mission. That's not a huge shock because it's Boeing, but I still think that's something worth noting. That Trump just went to China and got China to agree to buy 200 Boeing aircraft. Or maybe it's not 200, but really one big Boeing aircraft, and they're just covering it up. But of course, that's just me wildly speculating, okay? Then we have Artemis 4 launching in early 2028, and that's supposed to be our first lunar landing with that program. All of this is supposed to take place before the flyby on April 13th, 2029. But perhaps of all of the new data I accumulated for this story, what fascinated me the most was this. The ESA hosted a workshop in the Netherlands back in April of 2024, and Rick Binzel, who's an American astronomer and professor at MIT, had specifically 3 messages for this conference. Apophis will miss the Earth. Apophis will miss the Earth. Apophis will miss the Earth. And it seems to me like if you have to say it that many times, you're not convinced. Just a couple more interesting tidbits on this story. So first of all, back in September of 2023, on the 24th of that month, 20 minutes after dropping samples from Bennu's asteroid into the Earth's atmosphere, OSIRIS-REx was diverted towards Apophis and was renamed OSIRIS-APEX. And it just so happens that Bennu has been a topic of wild speculation as well. But then I'd like to close with this, because this is, I think, a really fascinating detail. An astronomic unit is a unit of measure, like a foot or a mile, and using that scale, the distance from Earth to the Moon is 0.00257 AU. Do you know what the closest predicted distance Apophis is supposed to be from Earth? 0.00021. Let me put that into perspective for you. You take a ruler and you measure from Earth to the Moon, and it's 1 foot, it's 12 inches. That would put Apophis less than 1 inch from Earth. But remember, this is just for entertainment purposes only. I have no reason to believe that this could actually come true. I am just being a wild speculator, and I'm sure those missing scientists have nothing to do with this.
So the Holy Spirit has given me an urgency to watch asteroid movies. And last week we watched Greenland. And I noticed this in the beginning of the movie. Check this out. So in the movie Greenland, they're going to have an asteroid that is flying close to the Earth. Except the government knows more than what they're telling the citizens. We know this because throughout this movie, it starts off with everybody watching what takes place.
Just in time, when the first chunk's about to hit. Clark is gonna hit? Only part of it? Don't worry, it's going to the ocean.
And I have to let you know, this is all for entertainment purposes only, and everything that I'm saying here is for fun, fictional, creative interpretation. So with that said, in this movie, the government doesn't tell the citizens what's actually about to take place, because this thing, Clark, is a planet killer. But they don't know that. And so is there any connection to what's described in this movie Greenland to what's taking place here in the near future? Yeah, let me break it down. Again, for entertainment purposes only. Apophis will be one of the closest known asteroid flybys of Earth in recorded history. But this one is unique, and it's unique because of a few key things that's associated with Scripture. There's something called the wormwood prophecy that you can read about in Revelation chapter 8, verses 7 through 11. The first angel sounded his trumpet, and there came hail and fire mixed with blood, and it was hurled down on the earth. The second angel sounded his trumpet, and something like a huge mountain, all ablaze, was thrown into the sea. The third angel sounded his trumpet, and a great star, blazing like a torch, fell from the sky on a third of the rivers and on the springs of water. The name of the star is Wormwood. A third of the waters turned bitter, and many people unalived from the waters that had became bitter. So we see fragments hailing fire down to the earth, something the size of a huge mountain all ablaze being thrown into the sea, and then a sky blazing like a torch falling from the sky named Wormwood. So these are after the fourth seal found in Revelation chapter 6, when God is pouring out his complete wrath on the world. This is known as the Great Tribulation, and it takes place after the 42 months of reign that the Antichrist holds. How do we know this? Because Daniel chapter 9 verse 27 says that the Antichrist confirms a covenant with many for 1 week, 7 years, and halfway through that period he breaks the covenant, stopping sacrifice and offering, and desecrates the temple. So after 3.5 years, the covenant's broken and the fourth seal begins. So if this was biblically relevant, that would mean that a covenant with many would have to happen 3.5 years prior to the wormwood prophecy taking place. So when did Donald Trump sign a peace covenant with many, and where did he sign it? Donald Trump signed the Gaza-related peace ceasefire agreement in Egypt on Monday, October 13th, 2025. So what is exactly 42 months after October 13th, 2025? 42 months after October 13th, 2025 is April 13th, 2029. Again, how long does the beast rule? The beast was given a mouth to utter proud words and blasphemies and to exercise its authority for 42 months. So exactly 42 months after a covenant with many was signed in Egypt, on April 13th, 2029, Apophis will be flying by the Earth. The largest asteroid to be flying closest by the Earth in recorded history. So what is Apophis? Apophis, also called Apep in Egyptian, is the god of chaos, darkness, and destruction. He is depicted as a giant serpent or dragon. Now there's a ton of scripture about the sun being darkened and the moon not giving light, but I want to jump to Revelation chapter 9, verse 1 and 2. It says, I saw a star had fallen from the sky to the earth, wormwood. Smoke rose from the abyss, and the sun and sky were darkened by the smoke from the abyss. Apophis is the god of chaos, darkness, and destruction, depicted as a giant serpent or dragon. Revelation 12, verse 3 and 4 says, Then another sign appeared in heaven, an enormous red dragon. Its tail swept a third of the stars out of the sky and flung them to the earth. And we see in Revelation chapter 20 that the dragon, that ancient serpent, is the devil or Satan. So what is this near-Earth asteroid documented as? 99942, or 666 inverted and 42. Remember, to exercise its authority for 42 months. 42. Remember, Apophis will be flying by the earth 42 months after Donald Trump signed a covenant with many in Egypt, and Apophis is the Egyptian god of darkness and destruction, also known as Apep. Well, NASA actually had a mission called Apep, and the mission was an experiment where it shot small rockets into the sky during the solar eclipses to see what would happen to the Earth's top layer air when the sun suddenly goes dark, the Egyptian god of chaos and darkness and destruction. I'm going to be closing this out quick, but check this out. NASA launched in 2021 known as DART, which is Double Asteroid Redirection Test, where it successfully tested whether a spacecraft could shift an asteroid's orbit as a planetary defense technique. And just this month, we launched Artemis 2 on April 1st, April Fool's Day, for them to just casually fly around the moon. And we have future scheduled flights leading up to a rough estimate of 2029. And in Artemis 2, we sent 4 people, 3 men and 1 woman. Look at the similarity of these 4 brave astronauts. Because at the end, I'm going to show you a clip from Paradise, a show about an asteroid colliding with Earth and people being selected to go underground to continue civilization. And this is the long-awaited finale. The most common plant referred to as wormwood in the English herbal and biblical context has the scientific name Artemisia absinthium. Artemis. Again, for entertainment purposes only. But share this, comment below what you think, and continue to sound the alarm. Be the trumpet. God bless you, and Godspeed.
Maybe. That's why we're sending these 4 brave explorers into the unknown to assess it, to get answers and bring them safely back to us. Now, they may not tell us what we want to hear. You have my word as your president, it will be the truth.